Hey guys, it's Em. Trepang 2 is an amazing game. Originally, I thought it was just going to be a fun shooter with a junk plot, but you end up with one of the best shooters I've ever played with a plot that feels like it gets deeper every single time you go through it and notice little small details. But this isn't my full-on glazing Trepang 2 video. Not yet, anyways. I want to talk about the writing surrounding the ending of the game, and the one of two aspects that kind of bug me about it. I'm going to assume you get the gist of the plot, so I'm going to be cutting a lot of the meat out here. If you want to be filled in fully, someone's been doing amazing videos putting the lore together of this game that I'll put on screen. But in short, you're a prisoner who gets freed, and you join an organization that's revealed to be more and more shady over the course of the game that's trying to beat another organization. Once you've finished your role for them, your cycle's finished. You go head back inside the base and then you're gassed. When your character wakes up, they have you in an incinerator, and you only get out because the dumbest character in fiction pulls out a pistol and holds it damn near against you. Both of my problems are in this final segment. Those being coming back and getting gassed, and then the furnace scene. To get the furnace scene out of the way, because it's not the part I really want to focus on, why on earth would you have a pistol and use it point blank against the super soldier who's just woken up? Why didn't they just shoot him while he was unconscious? Why on earth did they think it was necessary to only put him to sleep and then throw him in the furnace? Did the director just secretly hate him and want him to suffer the worst death possible at the end of his life? While everything past this point is some of the coolest stuff in the entire game, like 107 or fighting the task force, this bit is just genuinely so nonsensical in context, I can't help but think about it every time I see it, especially considering how tightly written everything else seems to be. But now we get on to the focus of this video, the gassing scene. Why did they need to gas 106 in the first place? This might seem self-explanatory, as at first you might say, well, obviously they were going to kill him, so they had to do this. But we've seen some of the other cycles loyal to the task force willingly die for their cause. Both 105 and Dr. Emerson both accepted their fates willingly. 105 does himself in, while Dr. Emerson lets you in his room himself and doesn't seem that bothered by the fact he has to die a second time. This wouldn't really be a problem for me if we had a scene where 106 defies the director, but this never happens, which is why it's so baffling to me they thought this extreme gas in the furnace method was needed. It might sound like I'm about to go off topic, but I promise you this will come full circle. The Blade Kisser DLC was short but plot-wise very poignant. I assumed the add-on would take place after the to-be-continued cliffhanger true ending of the game, but instead it's set during the main meat of the game where Subject 106 is simply doing the director's orders. The pre-final level of the game, Horizon HQ, had Anton imply the task force was ruining innocent lives and committing genocide instead of justice. There's some instances in the intel, but in the base game most of the damage that you guys inflict was focused on Horizon forces, which in case you haven't read, most of them are war criminals in some capacity. You kill a scientist here and there, and the director seems less interested in her force's well-being than the other leaders that we see here, like the Patriarch or Anton. But at the end of the day, you're fighting a dude who made a flesh golem out of dead people, and the other guy who made the Pandora Institute. Seriously, look at the lore of the Pandora Institute. It's actually really crazy. But in Blade Kisser, the director really makes you pull off some Spec Ops The Line type actions. At Site Omega, you end up killing quite a few workers and scientists yourselves. A small detail is the planes flying off base that the air support are shooting down aren't firing back. This is because they're simply evacuating civilians. Once you destroy the sub, you hear multiple people drowning as their escape pods have failed. And overall, the force you attack the rig with just seems unneeded. It's extreme, brutal even. The scene with Dr. Emerson is stronger for you playing 106 than some moral kind of thing, because this is your predecessor, and he seems to have a damn near cult-like unwavering belief in the task force, to where, like I said earlier, he willingly dies with no complaints, simply letting you kill him. Then we get on to Task Force 6-3, and nothing that happens in this mission is okay from any moral standpoint. You go in to save the other task force that's being invaded, but once the newly appointed leader refuses to leave without his wounded, and it's made pretty clear that that won't be the easiest thing to do, the director tells you to kill the remaining wounded in the base, to which 106 does without a second thought or even a gesture. This leads to the remaining other Task Force 6-3 members trying to surrender themselves to Horizon, as in the leader's words, they probably have a better shot with Horizon than they do yours, as after all, you just slaughtered multiple containers of injured men who couldn't even fight back just because you were told to do so. In the end, 106 slaughters everyone who remains in this task force, including the leader, who tries to stay behind and fight with his men, despite the fact that from the line he says while you're fighting him, it's clear he knows he can't beat you. It goes from a rescue mission to a slaughter quite fast, and it's almost horrifying to think about. The way this level was handled in atmosphere is amazing. At the end of it all, the director seems to spin it to the others as if they simply betrayed the group, so they had to be put down. She then tells 106 this had to be done. The most we get from 106 after all this is a brief pause at the end of the mission where he looks down at his hand. Given the fact he can't talk, this could mean multiple things. From him accepting the fact that this needed to be done for the task force, to him reflecting on the massacre of an entire faction simply because the other task force's leader valued his men's lives before the mission. Both of these DLCs, but mainly the second one for me, were made to cement the fact that the director is a cold, calculating monster. There aren't any real emotions in her choices, simply the bottom line. If Horizon got anyone from this task force to talk, it would be bad for the group. And since it doesn't seem there's any way they can save them, she simply tells 106 to execute them. The worst part about this is before the role was passed to the current Task Force 6-3 leader you end up talking to, the group's director leaves a note saying that if escape's impossible, self-termination is the only answer, or something to that effect. While we may just look at our director as an absolute bastard, she's clearly part of a bigger system that doesn't value human life and simply sees the results. In her defense, she did clearly try a bit, but once the ready options of escape were cut off, she didn't say maybe 106 and their remaining troops could defeat the Horizon forces or make them back off. She goes for the most efficient and somewhat cruel directive of just terminating them. While I don't believe these were really needed plot-wise, as the ending still works without them, they really help push this narrative that there aren't any real good guys in this story. You're not some knight in shining armor in this plot. You're a lapdog for bad people that's used to kill other bad people. While all this is amazing, it doesn't help the initial question I had. Why gas Subject 106 to kill him? He willingly slaughtered wounded, innocent people just because he was told to. He partook in a raid where civilians were shot out of the air. He hears screams from drowning people from the submarine he made explode. And the most he did after all this was look at his hand. You cannot tell me this one moment was enough for the director to think he wasn't fully loyal to their cause. It just really seems like we're missing something. Like a big clump of plot to make us believe that 106 wouldn't willingly end his cycle as the other two did. I doubt it'd be soon, but I feel we need an add-on where 106 partially defects, but is accepted back due to his value. Put us in a scenario, or if we're following Blade Kisser's trend of 2 levels per pack, scenarios, where 106 has to deal with innocent, unarmed people. Maybe the task force needs a Horizon scientist or soldier to join their cause. So 106 slaughters a path to someone close to who the director wants. Maybe a spouse or some other sort of relative. Then when he reaches them, the director gets their hands on this person of interest somehow, like they've surrendered, or that other task force operatives simply managed to get a hold of them. But the director wants to send a message to Horizon. So instead of holding the spouse or relative hostage, the one that you've been chasing after this whole time, the director would tell 106 to kill them. This would put him in a place where he's not killing someone related to Horizon, the task force, or anyone you could argue they partially signed up for this kind of thing. Just a completely innocent person whose only crime is being related to a POI. And at the end of this hypothetical mission, 106 simply lowers his gun. The director chews him out for not listening to her orders, but in the theme of this game's general misery, she simply orders some nearby assisting task force members to do it instead. 106 would turn his back and simply hear the execution that happens behind him. Once back at base, Raven and the quartermaster probably wouldn't even have been told the real objective of this mission, so they don't add much of value to the discussion. But once the director starts speaking to you, she chews out 106 even further, but ends off by saying she'll let this slide, but it's been noted, or that this shall never happen again, or else there will be consequences. A mission or two like this would be fucking amazing. It'd show how manipulative, cold, and calculating the director is, while also letting you know she only really likes 106 because he does what she tells him to do. It also plant the seeds for us to believe that 106 could naturally go rogue, or that the director wouldn't have faith he'd simply listen to her, as he's seeming to begin rationalizing things on his own, instead of just being a good dog. Maybe it reminds her how Anton and the Patriarch started acting before she lost control of them completely. This whole area feels like a blank point in the plot, and I really hope it gets filled out in the future. And if they decide to, I'm sure it'll be great as the rest of the game's story has been. But anyways, I've been talking a lot. What do you guys think? As always, as long as you're respectful in the comments, I'm glad to discuss with you, and I've been out, and I am out.